They say hunger teaches the sharpest lessons. And for young Emeka Okoye, hunger was a teacher that never missed a single class. When you hear the word billionaire in Port Harcourt today, you may think of private jets, mansions in old GRA, and convoys moving through traffic like kings of the road. But Emeka's story did not begin there. His story began in a one-room zinc house where the rain had no respect for walls and the roof leaked like a broken drum. He grew up in the kind of poverty that bruises your pride before you are old enough to know what pride even means. As a boy, Emeka sometimes did not go to school because his parents could not pay the fees on time. The school would send him away until the fees were paid. He remembers the shame of standing at the gate, watching other children go in while he had to return home. Some days his mother tried to borrow small money for school, but the borrowings ran out. Other days there was food on the table, and some days there was not. He remembered the taste of rice like it was Christmas, because his mother could only afford it on special occasions. The city of Port Harcourt was already buzzing with oil money in those days, but people like Emeka only saw the wealth from far away. He worked odd jobs after school, carrying blocks at building sites, washing cars for neighbors, sometimes even hawking pure water on hot afternoons. Each coin he made was small, but each coin also carried a dream. And the dream was simple: my children will never live like this. Emeka's turning point came at the age of 30, when he got the chance to work as a driver for an oil services company. He was not the most educated, but he was determined. He drove long hours, listened to conversations, and slowly learned how the business worked. After years of saving, hustling, and borrowing, he started his own small supply business. The risk was big, but so was his hunger to succeed. Success did not come overnight. He lost contracts. He begged banks. He fought tears when deals failed. But Emeka was the kind of man who refused to stop climbing. Slowly, the contracts grew larger, the accounts fatter, and the doors that once slammed in his face began to open. Within 2 decades, he was no longer the poor boy from the leaking zinc house. He was Chief Emeka Okoye, one of Port Harcourt's billionaires. His mansion stood tall in GRA, with marble floors that shone like mirrors. There were chandeliers that sparkled like stars, cars that purred like lions, and staff everywhere: cooks, drivers, security guards, gardeners, and housemaids. To visitors, it looked like paradise. But to Emeka, it was not just wealth. It was proof that his vow as a boy was coming true. You see, Emeka had made a promise when he was still that hungry boy eating gari. He promised that his children would never know what suffering tastes like. They would never beg for school shoes. They would never go to bed hungry. They would never fear the rain leaking through the roof. His promise was not just in his heart. It was the fuel that drove him to wealth. And now, he had children of his own. There was Kelechi, the first son, 25 years old, tall and handsome. Kelechi had the confidence of someone who had never heard the word no. Then came Amanda, 23-year-old daughter who loved cameras more than books. Her laughter could fill a room, but so could her complaints when things didn't go her way. And finally, there was Princess, 20 years old, the youngest. Quiet, thoughtful, sometimes staring out the window as if searching for something beyond the mansion walls. From the day they were born, Emeka wrapped them in the comfort he never had. Private schools, foreign vacations, birthdays with cakes so tall they looked like buildings, drivers waiting to take them everywhere, staff cleaning after them before they even noticed the dirt. If they wanted toys, they got them. If they wanted gadgets, it was delivered the next day. To Emeka, this was victory. To him, he was winning the war against poverty, not just for himself, but for his bloodline. But at night, when the house grew quiet and the chandeliers dimmed, Emeka often found himself walking the halls alone. He would pause outside his children's rooms and listen to the sounds. Laughter from a video game, Amanda's voice chatting loudly on the phone, Princess's soft humming. His heart swelled with pride. Still, something tugged at him. A shadow of worry he could not name. His children had everything. But were they ready for the world outside these gates? Were they strong? Or were they only sheltered? He shook the thought away each time, telling himself, "They will be fine. I will fix everything for them." Chief Emeka stood by the window of his master bedroom, remembering the little boy he once was, barefoot in the rain, swearing that life would be different. He whispered into the night, as if making a new vow, "I will make sure my children never know pain. I will fix every problem before it touches them." And yeah, as the storyteller, let me pause and ask you this. Can money truly fix everything? Because soon, Emeka was about to discover that the same promise he made with love might become the very chain that binds his children. You would think that a house filled with wealth should be filled with joy. But sometimes, too much comfort can be as heavy as a prison wall. In Chief Emeka Okoye's mansion, life ran like clockwork. When the children were younger, breakfast was already waiting on the table before their eyes even opened. Jollof rice, fried plantain, fresh juice, and bread warm from the oven. Their uniforms were ironed, shoes polished until they could see their faces in them. Drivers stood by the cars before the school bell even rang. If Amanda misplaced her notebook, another appeared that same day. If Kelechi's pen broke during an exam, the driver rushed in with a new pack. Every problem was solved before it became a problem. To outsiders, it looked perfect. But to the children, it meant they never had to lift a finger for anything. Kelechi, the first son, now 25, and in a private university. Unlike most students who rented apartments close to campus, he still lived at home in his father's mansion. Every morning, he drove himself to school in one of his father's cars, sometimes showing up late to class, sometimes not at all. He loved to sleep in, and even when Ngozi, the headmaid, knocked and knocked on his door, he would only roll his eyes and stretch lazily. "I'll go when I feel like it," he often muttered. If he missed a test or got into trouble, he knew his father would make a call or give him money to settle things with the lecturers quietly. There was nothing to worry about. Amanda, the middle child, now 23 and also in the university, but school was never her focus. She cared more about her phone than her books, spending hours taking selfies, recording dances, and counting likes. When her grades dropped, she didn't panic. She often paid the lecturers to overlook her poor performance and give her good grades. Other times, if the lecturers were very strict, her father would arrange influential friends to speak on her behalf. "Don't worry, Amanda," he often told her, patting her shoulder. "You will be fine. Daddy will handle it." And Amanda believed him. She didn't need to push herself. She had her father's wealth as her safety net. Princess, the youngest at 20, was different from her siblings. She was in the university too, but unlike Amanda and Kelechi, she hardly cared about parties or showing off. She spent more time observing people than joining them. Sometimes, on the drive to campus, she would notice hawkers weaving through traffic, sweat shining on their foreheads as they balanced trays of goods. She often wondered what it felt like to live that kind of life, to wake up and know that if you didn't work, you wouldn't eat. But in her own world, need did not exist. If she wanted a new dress, it was delivered the next day. If she craved a meal, the cook made it within the hour. She rarely complained, but deep inside, she carried questions she couldn't share. What would my life be like if Daddy wasn't here to shield me from everything? Running the mansion was Ngozi, the maid who had served Emeka for many years. She was not just a worker, she was like family. She knew the children's moods better than anyone. She could tell when Kelechi was hiding anger, when Amanda was pretending to be happy, and when Princess was quietly curious. Sometimes she would sigh as she watched them. She often remembered the stories Chief had shared with her, how he once had nothing, how he worked day and night to build his life. He told her those stories so many times that they felt like memories of her own, but these children had no idea what sacrifice meant. One evening, as Ngozi walked to the corner shop to buy soap, she met Mrs. Kalu, their neighbor. Mrs. Kalu owned a small provision shop and also tutored children in the area. She had known Emeka since his struggling days. They greeted each other warmly, and then Mrs. Kalu lowered her voice. "Ngozi, these children are growing with soft hands," she said. "They are no longer small. At their age, they should know how to handle real responsibilities, cooking, cleaning, even working part-time during holidays. But look at them. Everything is done for them." Ngozi smiled politely. "Madam, it is not my place." Chief made a promise. He doesn't want them to suffer at all. Mrs. Kalu shook her head slowly. Life will not ask them for their father's promise. Life will ask them what they can do for themselves. Those words stayed with Ngozi as she returned to the mansion. The signs were everywhere. Kelechi once shouted at a lecturer in front of the whole class, simply because the man questioned his lateness. Amanda caused a scene when her favorite boutique delayed a new delivery she had ordered online. She spoke angrily on the phone for hours, blaming everyone but herself, as if the world had offended her. Princess didn't complain like her siblings, but she grew quiet whenever they mocked her for being too serious. Whenever she asked about basic skills like cooking or budgeting, Emeka noticed some of these things but brushed them aside. In his eyes, they were still young. He believed maturity would come with time. "They are enjoying now because I worked hard," he told himself. "One day, they will be serious." But the truth was different. The more he solved their problems, the less they learned how to solve anything for themselves. One semester, Kelechi failed an important course and was supposed to carry it over into the next semester. The lecturer in charge was known for being very strict, but as usual, his father made the call to the right people in the school. After some quiet conversations and payment, the lecturer agreed to adjust the result. Problem solved. But Kelechi did not study harder. He only learned that failure could be erased if you had enough money. Not long after, Amanda posted a flashy video online, flaunting money arrogantly at a party. The video spread quickly, and people began calling her a spoilt brat. Amanda was furious. When someone used that word to her face at another gathering, she lost her temper and got into a fight. The clip of the fight went viral. It was a mess. A total disgrace for the daughter of a man as rich and influential as Chief Emeka. His reaction was to hire a PR team to clean up the scandal. Amanda never stopped to ask herself why the video had caused so much trouble. She only learned that disgrace disappears when your father pays for it. Meanwhile, Princess kept her thoughts to herself. Watching her siblings, she wondered quietly, if problems always vanish because of Daddy's money, how will we ever grow strong? The mansion was full of laughter, music, and comfort, but beneath it all was silence. The silence of children who never had to try. It was like a cage, golden and shining, but a cage all the same. One night at dinner, the family gathered around the large glass table. The chef had prepared fried rice, chicken, and salad. Emeka sat at the head, smiling proudly at his children. Kelechi leaned back in his chair, scrolling on his phone with one hand while eating with the other. With a lazy grin, he said, "Honestly, there's no need to stress. With Dad's name, doors will always open for us." Amanda laughed and raised her glass of juice. "Exactly. We don't have to struggle like other people. Daddy has already done everything for us." Princess looked down at her plate, slowly pushing rice around with her fork. Ngozi, serving water, paused and glanced at Emeka. For the first time, he did not laugh. He set his spoon down, his eyes fixed on his children. The room grew quiet, and in that silence, for the first time, Emeka began to wonder, had his promise become a mistake? They say a house does not fall in one day. First, tiny cracks appear in the walls, so small you almost ignore them, until one morning, everything begins to shake. That night at dinner, when Kelechi bragged and Amanda laughed, Chief Emeka's heart grew heavy. He did not say a word, but after the children went upstairs, he stayed at the table, staring at the empty plates. Ngozi lingered in the corner, waiting to clear the dishes. She wanted to speak, but kept quiet. Emeka's silence was deep, like someone hearing an echo inside his own soul. From that night, little things began to disturb him. One afternoon, Chief came home earlier than usual. As he entered the compound, he noticed one of his cars parked at an odd angle, music blasting from inside. Walking closer, his heart sank. It was Kelechi, sitting in the car with his friend, laughing loudly and drinking from cans. Books and papers for his project lay scattered on the back seat, untouched. When Chief Emeka stepped forward, Kelechi quickly lowered the music but showed no sign of shame. "Dad, we were just chilling," he said casually, waving his hand as if it was nothing. Chief said, "Son, your final year project deadline is around the corner, and you are here, chilling?" Kelechi replied, "Daddy, relax. Everything is under control." Chief Emeka's jaw tightened. He stood there in silence without saying another word, the weight of disappointment heavy in his chest. This was his first son, 25 years old. Yet he behaved like a boy who had no understanding of responsibility. On another day, Emeka received a call from one of his close friends who also happened to be on the university board. The man sounded worried. "Chief, your daughter Amanda skipped an important test. She was seen at a birthday party with her friends instead. When the lecturer questioned her later, she boldly said it didn't matter, that she could always make up for it since her father would sort things out." Emeka's grip on the phone tightened. His friend continued, "Sir, Amanda is a bright girl, but she doesn't take her studies seriously. If this continues, even I may not be able to shield her." Heat rose in Emeka's face. His Amanda, the girl he had spoiled with every comfort, had started to believe that rules did not apply to her. Ngozi, who had seen the children grow, also noticed the changes. She wanted to speak to Emeka, but how could she? He was her boss. Yet one evening, as she poured him a glass of water, she finally whispered, "Chief, forgive me, but I think the children need to learn small lessons on their own. They are good children, but life outside is not like this house." Emeka looked at her for a long moment. Her words sank into him with quiet truth. Deep down, he already feared she was right. Slowly, he pressed his hands together and sighed. "Ngozi, I only wanted them to be happy. I wanted them to be safe." "They are safe, sir," Ngozi said softly. "But happiness is not only in comfort. Sometimes happiness comes from trying, from failing, and from rising again." Emeka could not sleep that night. He tossed and turned, hearing the laughter of his children in his mind. Laughter without responsibility. Laughter without awareness. He was proud of his wealth, but now he began to ask himself, what if my wealth is a shield that blinds them? The very next week, the cracks became bigger. Kelechi got into a confrontation on campus. A fellow student mocked him, saying he was only cruising on his father's money and had no future of his own. Instead of walking away, Kelechi struck first. The matter quickly escalated, and the university security got involved. Soon after, Emeka was called in. As always, he solved it with money and influence, smoothing things over with the right people so it wouldn't stain Kelechi's record. But on the drive home, Kelechi leaned back in his seat, stretched, and said with a grin, "Thank you, Dad. I know you'll always fix things." That single line cut Emeka deeper than the confrontation itself. Amanda caused another storm. One evening, she returned home with a group of flashy friends from campus. They laughed loudly, played music, and left the living room littered with cups and snack wrappers after their small hangout. When Ngozi bent down to clean, one of them sneered and made a rude joke. Amanda laughed along, not defending the woman who had cared for her since childhood. Just then, Chief Emeka walked in. His eyes swept the room, the noise, the mess, and Ngozi's face filled with shame. Without a word of greeting, he said firmly, "Everyone, out of my house, now." The laughter died at once. Amanda's friends shuffled out quickly, whispering to each other. When the door closed, Chief Emeka turned to Amanda, his voice heavy with disappointment. "This woman helped raise you. She is like family. And you stand there laughing while she is insulted? Amanda, is this what you have become?" Amanda shifted uncomfortably, unable to meet his eyes. Chief's chest tightened. His daughter, spoiled by comfort, was beginning to lose respect, not just for others, but for herself. Only Princess seemed different, but her silence was heavy. One evening, she came to her father's study. "Daddy," she said quietly, "why do we have staff to do everything? Don't you think we should at least clean our own rooms or wash our plates?" Her words pierced him. He wanted to agree with her, to let her try. But then the memory of his childhood returned. The empty plates, the nights of hunger, the leaking roof. His promise rose like a wall around his heart. My children will never taste this kind of suffering. So, instead of answering, he reached out and touched her hand gently. "Don't worry yourself about such things, my dear," he said. Princess nodded, but her eyes showed she was not convinced. When she left, Chief Emeka leaned back in his chair, more troubled than ever. The mansion still glittered with lights, still smelled of good food, still echoed with music and laughter. But Emeka now saw it differently. He saw not a palace, but a fragile house where cracks were spreading on every side. One evening, after a long meeting, Emeka sat in his office staring at a picture on the wall. An old black and white photo of himself as a young man, standing in front of his first shop. He looked hungry, determined, alive. He touched the glass frame and whispered, "Where is that fire now? Did I quench it by protecting my children too much?" Later that night, Emeka found a stack of shopping bags dumped carelessly in the living room. Shoes, clothes, perfumes, all from expensive stores. He didn't need anyone to tell him whose they were. Amanda had gone on another shopping spree. He closed his eyes, a heavy sigh escaping his chest. The cracks were now too loud to ignore. And as Emeka sat in the darkness of his office, one question burned in his mind. If my children are not ready for the world, what will happen when I am no longer here to protect them? Sometimes, the loudest voices are not the ones we hear in the present. Sometimes, the voices that guide us come from the past, voices we once ignored, but can never forget. The Okoye mansion was quieter than usual that evening. Kelechi was out late with friends again, his car missing from the driveway. Amanda stayed shut in her room, busy on social media, posting pictures and chatting with friends. Princess sat alone in the living room, curled into a chair. The television flickered in front of her, but her eyes were far away, lost in thought. The house felt too big, like a palace with no laughter. Chief Emeka walked through the corridor slowly, his mind heavier than his steps. For days, he had been troubled. His children were growing, but not in the way he had once dreamed. Instead of strength, he saw weakness. Instead of gratitude, he saw entitlement. It was as if the wealth he worked so hard to build had become a trap for them. He sat in his study, the same study lined with books he rarely touched these days. A family photo sat on the desk. His eyes lingered on it, not on the children, but on the woman beside him. Her name was Ifeoma, his wife, his partner, his balance. She had died 10 years ago in a plane crash, on her way back from Abuja. The news had shattered him. For weeks he could not eat or sleep. He poured all his grief into protecting the children even more fiercely. If he had once promised to keep them from suffering, her death doubled that vow. He wanted to shield them from every pain, because they had already lost their mother. But tonight, as he stared at her face in that photo, something stirred. Memories he had buried began to rise. He could almost hear her voice in the room. "Honey," she used to say, her brows pulled tight with frustration. "You cannot raise them like this. They must wash their plates after eating. They must tidy their rooms. Let them do their homework by themselves. He would laugh, waving his hand. Why stress them? Did I not suffer enough for all of us? Let them enjoy. I can hire people for those small things. Her voice would rise. No, these are not small things. These are the things that shape a person. Life will not pamper them the way you are pampering them. One day, they will face the world on their own. What will happen then? They argued about it again and again, sometimes late into the night. She wanted responsibility. He wanted comfort. She wanted discipline. He wanted ease. And when she died, there was no one left to challenge him. He silenced her warnings by drowning the children in more luxury. But now he could see it clearly. Her warnings had not been nagging. They had been prophecy. Everything she feared was unfolding right before his eyes. And for the first time in years, he admitted to himself, she was right. He covered his face with both hands and sat still for a long while. The mansion around him felt empty, cold, almost accusing. The cars outside, the polished floors, the expensive furniture, all of it meant nothing if his children had no strength of their own. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. It was Ngozi, carrying a tray of food. She placed it on the table gently, studying his face. "Chief, are you all right?" she asked softly. He forced a smile, but it was weak. "I'm fine, Ngozi. Just thinking." She hesitated, then said, "You think about Madam often, don't you?" Emeka nodded. His voice cracked. "She tried to show me. She tried to tell me, but I refused to listen. Now look at them." Ngozi's heart ached at his words, but she said nothing more. She left quietly, giving him space. Alone again, Emeka turned back to the photo. He whispered as if speaking to his wife across the years. "Ifeoma, you were right. I thought I was protecting them, but maybe I was only protecting myself from the fear of seeing them struggle. Maybe I was too weak to let them be strong." Meanwhile, down the hall, Princess stood by the window, her arms folded as she gazed out at the night sky. The quiet pressed on her, and her thoughts drifted to her mother. She wished, more than anything, that her mother was still alive. Maybe, just maybe, things would have been different. And in that silence, one question hung heavy in the air, echoing through both father and daughter. If the children had been raised the way Ifeoma wanted, would they have turned out different? Chief Emeka thought he still had time to fix things. But the truth was, a storm was already gathering, and something needed to be done quickly before it got out of hand. Have you ever seen a storm that nobody saw coming? It starts small, a shift in the wind, a quiet roll of thunder, and before you know it, everything is upside down. That was how it happened in Chief Emeka's house. The storm came, not from outside, but from his own children. It began on a Monday morning. Emeka was in his study, sipping tea, when his phone rang. It was a lawyer friend, his voice sharp and serious. "Chief, you need to come to the station. It's Kelechi." Emeka's heart dropped. "What happened?" The man hesitated. "He was arrested. Something about a nightclub fight. A reporter got hold of it." "Chief, it's in the news." Emeka shifted slowly, as if his body had turned heavy. His son? His first son? The one who was supposed to carry his name proudly? The headlines were already online. "Billionaire's son involved in a fight again." He didn't even have time to breathe before another phone buzzed. This time, his PR manager. "Sir, we have another issue. It's Amanda. A video of her. Sir, it's trending everywhere. She was at a party. Things got out of hand. There's footage of her, drunk, shouting at an elderly woman who tried to stop the noise. People are calling her arrogant and disrespectful. 2 scandals in one day. 2 children he loved more than life itself dragged through the mud. He rushed to the station. Kelechi sat there, arms crossed, acting untouchable. "Dad, don't stress. Just bail me out. I know you can." His tone was careless, almost mocking. Emeka felt the sting deep in his chest. Was this really his son? "Kelechi, do you even understand what you've done? You got into a confrontation in public, and you think money will erase it? Kelechi leaned back, smirking. Money fixes everything, Dad. Isn't that what you've always shown us? The words cut like a blade. Emeka opened his mouth, but no sound came. His own teaching had come back to mock him. When he got home, Amanda was waiting, eyes swollen from crying. But the first thing she said was not sorry. Daddy, please call your people to pull down the video. I can't stand the comments. They're calling me a disgrace. Emeka looked at her, his heart breaking. Amanda, do you know why they're calling you that? She shook her head, still sobbing. Because you gave them a reason. Because you've lived like the world owes you something, when the truth is, the world owes you nothing. His voice trembled. It was the first time he had ever raised his voice at her. That night, Emeka sat alone in the living room. The house felt too big, too empty. He remembered his late wife again, and her arguments with him. Let them sweep the floor, honey. Let them do their homework by themselves. One day, you will not be here to fight their battles. He had called her too strict, too harsh. But now, with tears burning his eyes, he knew he was wrong. And that moment he decided that it's time to stop saving them and let them learn to save themselves. The next morning, he called a family meeting. His children sat before him, each one restless. He looked at them not as a billionaire, but as a father who had made grave mistakes. I will always love you, he began slowly. But love is not giving you everything. Love is teaching you to live without me. I gave you wealth, but I did not give you wisdom. That ends today. Kelechi and Amanda, you both are in the news again for unacceptable behavior. And this time, I am not going to hire a PR team to clean up the mess. From now, no more covering your mistakes. No more paying to erase your failures. You will work, you will fall, you will rise again. That is how you will learn. Kelechi looked away. Amanda fidgeted. Princess sat quietly beside her dad, but the weight of his words hung heavy in the room. It was not an easy road ahead. The headlines would sting, the shame would burn, but maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something new. A life where his children would finally discover strength, not bought with money, but built with their own hands. Moral of the story: love that only gives prevents growth. The best gift a parent can give is not endless comfort, but the strength to stand when you are no longer there to hold them. You can provide wealth, but without discipline and wisdom, life will teach your children lessons that money can never protect them from. Balance care with responsibility. That is true love. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more powerful tales like this. Give this video a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments below.